The peace talks begin. In the vastness of space, where countless stars flickered like distant diamonds, a momentous event was about to take place. The Galactic Council, a powerful group made up of leaders from across the universe, had invited the humans to peace talks. The war between humans and the galactic forces had been long and bloody, and the Council was desperate to bring an end to the violence. After years of fighting, they believed this was the only chance for peace, but they had no idea what they were in for. The humans arrived at the meeting in their ships, sleek and dark, cutting through the void like predators hunting in the silence of space. The Council had been preparing for this moment for months, and many had imagined that humans would be eager to settle their differences. After all, the humans were outnumbered, their forces stretched thin across multiple galaxies. But the Council didn't understand the full depth of human pride and determination. They thought they could push the humans into agreeing to peace on their own terms, without truly considering the humans' point of view. As the meeting began, the humans were calm and collected. They sat across the table from the Council's leaders, their eyes sharp and unwavering. The room was filled with the quiet hum of advanced technology, and the air was thick with tension. Leaders from dozens of different races sat in their seats, watching the humans carefully, trying to read their intentions. The humans' expressions were unreadable. No one knew what was going on inside their minds. "Welcome, Earth representatives," the leader of the Galactic Council said, his voice deep and commanding. "We've called you here to discuss an end to the fighting. Our galaxy has suffered enough, and we believe it is time for peace." The humans nodded, but none of them spoke immediately. They waited, studying the Council members, understanding that words alone wouldn't define the outcome of this meeting. The room grew still, everyone waiting for the humans' response. After a long pause, the human delegation's leader, a man known only as Commander Grant, spoke. His voice was steady, but there was an edge to it, a hint of something unspoken. "We are here because we believe peace is possible," he said, "but we are not here to sign any agreement that is not fair to our people. We will not be treated as a conquered race." The Council's leaders exchanged glances. Some were surprised by the tone of the humans' response. Others tried to hide their discomfort, but it was clear that the humans were not as eager to settle as the Council had hoped. The Council leader, an alien known as Trixion, a tall being with shimmering scales, cleared his throat. "We are not suggesting that you are a conquered race. We are offering peace to ensure the survival of your people. The war has cost both sides dearly, and we wish to move forward." Commander Grant's gaze never wavered. "And what terms do you offer? We have heard your proposals before. They always favor your interests. What guarantees do we have that you won't break your word once we sign a treaty?" The Council members were taken aback. Trixion shifted in his seat, clearly uncomfortable with the question. "The Galactic Council is a respected institution. Our word is our bond." But Commander Grant wasn't convinced. "Respect is earned, not given. Our people have fought for survival, not because we wanted war, but because we had no choice. If we agree to peace, it will be on our terms, terms that protect our people." The room fell silent. The Council members exchanged uncertain glances. They had expected the humans to be more willing to compromise, but instead they were met with unwavering determination. The humans were not the desperate, tired race the Council had imagined. They were strong, resilient, and unwilling to bow to anyone. Trixion, trying to regain control of the conversation, spoke again. "We are willing to offer you resources, protection, and a seat at the table of the galactic powers. Surely this is enough to start a conversation." Grant didn't flinch. "Your resources and protection are not what we need. We need respect. If you truly want peace, it has to come with an understanding that we are equals, not subjects." A murmur went through the Council. Many of the members were beginning to realize that the humans were not going to give in easily. They had underestimated them, thinking that the humans would be grateful for whatever the Council offered. But this wasn't about gratitude. This was about survival, pride, and a sense of honor. Trixion paused, staring at Grant. His face was unreadable, but the humans could see a flicker of concern in his eyes. The council had not expected this level of resistance. The humans were not afraid. They were strong and proud. And the council realized, perhaps for the first time, that they might have made a grave mistake by inviting them to the table. Commander Grant stood up slowly. "We are not here to be your pawns. We are here to talk as equals. If you can't accept that, there will be no peace." The council was stunned. The humans had made it clear that they would not be pushed around. They would not sign any peace treaty unless it was on their terms, and that fact was becoming more and more apparent with every passing moment. Trixion opened his mouth to speak again, but the humans had already made their decision. They stood and began to walk away from the table. Their footsteps echoed in the large chamber, and the sound seemed to reverberate through the hearts of the council members. For the first time, they felt a sense of fear creeping in. They had invited the humans here, but it was the humans who had the power now. The first sign of trouble. The Galactic Council's chamber grew eerily quiet after the humans walked away from the table. The sound of their footsteps echoed in the massive hall, a sound that seemed to linger long after they had left. Trixion, the leader of the council, sat frozen, staring at the empty seats where the humans had once sat. His mind raced, but his body remained still, unable to fully process what had just happened. The council members exchanged nervous glances, whispers starting to fill the room. Some were still in disbelief, while others felt the cold hand of fear creeping up their spines. They had invited the humans here, believing they could force them into submission. Instead, they had been met with a calm, yet firm refusal, a refusal that was now ringing in their ears. Trixion stood up slowly, his tall figure casting a shadow over the table. "This is unexpected," he muttered, more to himself than to anyone else. The council had never encountered a race quite like the humans. They were supposed to be weakened by the war, their resources dwindling, their morale shattered. Yet here they were, leaving the peace talks without a second thought, their pride still intact. A counselor from a distant planet, a small but sharp-eyed species known as Kira, spoke up. "Perhaps we misjudged them. They do not act like a defeated race. They are strong, too strong. And now, they walk away, just like that." Trixion's eyes narrowed. "Yes, and that is precisely why we need to reassess our approach. The humans are not like the other races we've dealt with. They are unpredictable." The room was filled with murmurs of agreement. The council had expected the humans to be desperate for peace, to beg for an end to the war. Instead, they had shown resolve and confidence, qualities the council had not anticipated. "Do we send an envoy to try again?" asked a member from a race known for their diplomatic skills, the Ilithians, "or should we prepare for more resistance?" Trixion hesitated, his mind working overtime. He had always prided himself on being a wise leader, one who could read situations and people with great skill. But the humans were an anomaly. Their refusal was not an act of weakness, it was a statement of strength. "No," Trixion said finally, "we need to wait. We must see how they respond. This could be a test, a challenge to our authority. If they want peace, they will come back to us. But if they do not, we must be prepared." Another counselor, a creature known as the Vortex, a hulking figure with deep red skin, spoke with a gravelly voice. "Prepared for what? We cannot let them think they can simply walk away without consequences. The humans are not just one of many species. They have proven themselves capable of things we never imagined." Trixion looked at the Vortex, considering his words carefully. The humans had indeed proven themselves more capable than the council had realized. Their military victories had shaken the galaxy, and now, their refusal to negotiate was a clear signal that they were not to be taken lightly. But the Galactic Council could not afford to show weakness. They had to maintain their power. "I understand your concerns," Trixion said, his voice steady. "But right now, we do nothing. We wait and observe. If they want peace, they will return. And if not, we will be ready. Outside the council chamber, the humans were already taking action. Their ships, sleek and powerful, moved through the stars at full speed, returning to Earth and its colonies. The council had underestimated them, and now they were paying the price. The humans were no longer desperate. They had nothing to lose, and that made them dangerous. Back on Earth, Commander Grant was in a war room, his face illuminated by the glow of multiple screens. His team gathered around him, each one watching the feed from the peace talks that had just ended. The humans had made their stand, and now it was time to see how the galaxy would react. "They think we'll come crawling back," Grant said, his voice low and cold. "But they're wrong. We don't need them. If they want peace, they'll have to earn it. We're not giving in to anyone anymore." One of his officers, a young woman named Lieutenant Sarah, spoke up. "But what if they don't come back? What if the council decides to strike first?" Grant turned to her, a grim smile on his face. "Let them. We've fought worse. They may be the council, but they've never faced an opponent like us." The humans were not afraid. Their message had been clear. The war had lasted far too long, and they were no longer willing to accept terms that did not protect their people. Now, the ball was in the Galactic Council's court. The humans had walked away, but they had done so with purpose. The council, still in confusion, had no idea what was coming next. But the humans, ready for whatever the council decided, had already prepared their next move. This was no longer about talks. It was about power. The breaking point. As days passed, the Galactic Council grew restless. The humans had not returned to the negotiating table, just as Commander Grant had predicted. The council had been prepared for some resistance, but they hadn't expected complete silence. The galaxy's tension rose with every passing hour, and the fear that the humans had already begun preparing for something more was starting to take hold of the council members. In the high chambers of the council, the conversation turned to action. Trixion, still holding on to his leadership, had come to a difficult conclusion. The humans had to be dealt with, or they would lose all credibility. He knew that waiting indefinitely was not an option. "Send a diplomatic envoy," he commanded, his voice echoing through the Grand Hall. "We will offer the humans a final chance. Let them know that the Council has no intention of abandoning peace. If they refuse again, we will take further action." But as the envoy prepared to leave, Commander Grant made a decision of his own. He had anticipated the Council's next move, and he had already put things into motion. The humans were not going to be manipulated by a few empty promises or the threat of force. They had taken a bold step already by walking away from the peace talks, and they would not be the ones to return with their tails between their legs. Back on Earth, Grant stood before his war room, looking at the holographic maps and reports that filled the space. He turned to his advisors, a look of determination on his face. "It's clear they won't give us real peace," he said. "The Council thinks we'll be the ones to beg for it, but they're wrong. If they want peace, they'll have to earn it." One of his senior officers, General Marcus, looked at the screens. "What are you thinking, Commander? Should we strike first?" Grant's eyes gleamed with determination. "Not yet, but we need to prepare for every possibility. We have to show them that we are not afraid. Let them know we have the strength to end this conflict on our terms." While the Council scrambled to respond, the humans were already taking the next step in their strategy. Commander Grant and his forces began sending tactical units to key positions across the galaxy, stealthily, as they prepared to execute a well-coordinated counteroffensive. They would not wait for the Council to take the first move. The humans were prepared to turn the tables completely. As the Council's envoy approached Earth's orbit, tensions grew. The Council had hoped that a show of diplomacy would sway the humans, but as they entered the system, they realized the humans had a different message in mind. The envoy ship, a large and intricate craft built to represent the full might of the Galactic Council, was suddenly surrounded by human warships, ships that outmatched anything the Council had anticipated. The envoy ship halted mid-flight, its crew staring in stunned silence at the fleet now surrounding them. The humans had done it again. They had taken control of the situation without even a shot being fired. The Council was at a loss for words. They had tried to dictate the peace talks, but now it was clear that the humans were the ones calling the shots. Trixion watched as the human ships moved into position, their weapons primed but not yet fired. His mind raced. "This is not what we planned," he muttered, pacing in the council chamber. "They were supposed to bend, but they've taken control. What do we do now?" There was no easy answer. The humans had shown themselves to be more than just survivors. They were fighters, with a will that could not be broken by threats or empty promises. The Council's prestige, once so carefully guarded, was now at risk. How could they maintain their power in a galaxy where humans could command such strength? Commander Grant, on the other hand, knew exactly what he was doing. As the Council's envoy hovered in Earth's orbit, Grant prepared his message. He would not be the one to beg for peace. Instead, he would show the Council that they had underestimated humanity's resolve. On the human flagship, Grant's voice boomed over the comms. "This is Commander Grant of the United Earth Fleet. I'm giving you one final chance. We will negotiate peace, but it will be on our terms, or there will be no peace at all." The message was simple and clear. The humans were not backing down. The Council could either meet them halfway or face the consequences. Trixion, sitting in the Council chamber, stared at the communication in stunned silence. The boldness of the humans' actions was a slap in the face to everything the Council had stood for. They had walked away from the peace talks. Now, they were not asking for peace. They were demanding it. In that moment, the Council realized the depth of their mistake. They had underestimated the humans' will and power. The decision to walk away had been a calculated risk. And now, it seemed like that risk had turned into a full-blown crisis. As the Council scrambled to decide how to proceed, the humans had already taken the next step in their plan. No longer the ones with their backs against the wall, they now controlled the situation. The Council had to decide. Would they accept the terms of the humans, or would they risk everything to maintain their pride? The regret sets in. The vast halls of the Galactic Council were filled with murmurs of disbelief as the news spread across the galaxy. The humans, once seen as a desperate, broken species, had now become the force to be reckoned with. Their refusal to return to the peace talks had left the Council shaken, but it was their subsequent actions, surrounding the Council's envoy ships with their formidable warships, that had sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy. The humans had proven that they were not only capable of surviving, but of dominating. Trixion sat at the head of the Council, his mind in turmoil. He could still feel the sting of the humans' bold message. "We will negotiate peace, but it will be on our terms, or there will be no peace at all." Those words echoed in his mind, a constant reminder of the Council's failure. How could they have misjudged the humans so badly? He looked around at the other members of the Council, their faces a mixture of anger, frustration, and fear. There was no denying it anymore. The Council had underestimated the humans, and now they were paying the price. "Why did we think they would simply submit?" murmured Kira, the small-eyed diplomat from the Algorian system. Her voice was quiet, but it carried the weight of the realization that the humans had outsmarted them at every turn. "They are not like the other species we've dealt with. They are strong, driven, and unyielding." Trixion's eyes narrowed as he stared down at the holographic map before him, showing the positions of the human warships that surrounded their envoy. It was clear now that the humans weren't just standing their ground. They were preparing for something far greater. The Council had been caught off guard, and now the humans held all the cards. "Because we underestimated them," Trixion muttered, almost to himself. He had been so certain that the humans would be eager to end the war, that they would see the Council's offer as a lifeline. But the humans had no intention of bowing down. They had turned the tables on the council with one simple act: walking away. There was a long pause as the council members processed the gravity of their situation. They had been the ones who set the terms of the peace talks, who believed they could dictate the terms of surrender. But now, the humans had reversed everything. They had shown strength, not weakness, and in doing so, they had shaken the foundation of the council's power. "We have failed," said Trixion, the weight of the words settling over him. His voice, usually full of authority, was now tinged with doubt. He knew that if the council didn't act quickly, their reputation would be irreparably damaged. They couldn't afford to look weak, especially not in front of the other species in the galaxy. If the humans could stand up to the Galactic Council, who else could challenge their authority? A Vortex counselor, named Kor, slammed his fist on the table in frustration. "We cannot allow them to treat us this way. The humans have humiliated us in front of the galaxy. We must act, immediately." "Act?" Kira's voice was soft, but sharp. "And what would we do, Kor? We've tried diplomacy, we've tried intimidation, and nothing has worked. The humans are not afraid of us. They don't fear our power." Kor turned on her. "Then what do you suggest, Kira? We sit here and let them control the galaxy. We do nothing." Kira met his gaze, unflinching. "We can't force the humans into submission. Not now, not ever. We need to find another way. If we continue down this path, we risk a full-scale war, and we don't know if we can win that war." Trixion's face darkened as he considered Kira's words. The possibility of war with the humans was a terrifying thought. The Council had always assumed they could control the galaxy through diplomacy and their military might, but now they faced a species that refused to be controlled. The humans were no longer the underdogs. They were the new power, and they were willing to fight for their place in the galaxy. "We must be careful," Trixion finally said, his voice tight with the weight of his decision. "A full-scale war with the humans would devastate the galaxy. We have seen what they are capable of in battle. And now they have shown us they are willing to do whatever it takes to protect their people." The council members nodded in reluctant agreement. The humans had played their hand, and the Galactic Council was now faced with a choice: continue to push for peace on their terms, or offer the humans a deal that respected their power. The decision was not easy. The Council had always prided itself on its ability to control, to dictate terms, to bend weaker species to its will. But the humans had made it clear that they were not like the others. They would not be bent. In the silence that followed, Trixion took a deep breath, the weight of the situation pressing down on him. "We must offer them a new deal, one that respects their power and their will. If we continue to force our way, we risk losing everything. We must find common ground." The regret in Trixion's voice was unmistakable. He had once believed that the Council's power was absolute. Now, that belief seemed naive. The humans had shown him that even the mightiest powers could be challenged. And now, the Council had to decide how far they were willing to go to keep the peace they had once taken for granted. The consequences, the realization that the humans were not simply going to back down, hit the Galactic Council hard. The galaxy was in turmoil. News of the humans' bold move had spread quickly, and their refusal to engage on the Council's terms had caused a ripple effect across every corner of the universe. The Council's prestige had been shattered, and with it, their control over the galaxy began to falter. Within the Council chambers, tension had never been higher. The once proud leaders who had governed with unquestioned authority now found themselves questioning everything. Their decision to handle the humans with arrogance had cost them dearly. They had assumed that the humans would be desperate for peace, eager to save their dwindling forces from annihilation. But instead, the humans had proven to be not just survivors, but conquerors of their own fate. "Prepare the new offer," Trixion ordered, his voice strained. "We have no choice now. We must meet them on their terms." Around him, the Council members moved quickly, drafting proposals, sending communications to the human leaders. But even as they did, A sense of doubt loomed over every word they wrote. Could they regain control of the situation? Could they convince the humans to sit down and negotiate? The fear of an all-out war was now a reality, and it weighed heavily on every decision. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the humans were beginning to reap the rewards of their bold actions. The refusal to return to the talks had caused a shift in the balance of power, and the galaxy was watching closely. Earth's military forces were quickly assembling, not just for defense, but for a strategic push to expand their influence. Commander Grant knew that this was their moment. The Council had shown weakness, and the humans were ready to step into the void. Back on Earth, Grant addressed his officers in a command room filled with glowing screens and flashing indicators. His face was hard, but there was a flicker of resolve in his eyes. The Council is finally beginning to understand. They'll offer us another peace deal, but it'll be different this time. They've seen our strength. They'll offer terms that respect us. If they don't, we take the galaxy. There was no hesitation in his voice. The humans were no longer fighting for survival. They were fighting for dominance. They had no intention of returning to the table unless it was on their own terms, and Commander Grant knew that if the Council wanted peace, they would have to pay for it. General Marcus, one of Grant's most trusted officers, nodded. "We've got our fleets in position, ready for anything. If they want peace, we'll make sure it's on our terms. If not, we'll show them what happens when they underestimate humanity." As the humans prepared for whatever came next, the Galactic Council felt the full weight of their previous miscalculations. They had been used to having the upper hand, but now it was clear that the tables had turned. The humans were no longer in a position of weakness. The Council had given them the power, and now they were facing the consequences of that decision. The envoy ships, once symbols of the Council's authority, now stood in orbit around Earth, humiliated and vulnerable. The human forces had made their presence felt in ways the Council never expected. Diplomatic relations were no longer about negotiations. They had become a delicate dance of power, with the humans holding the strongest hand. In the Galactic Council chambers, members could not hide the growing anxiety that had settled over them. The humans had shown them a new kind of strength, one that was not based on sheer military force, but on resolve, on pride, and on the refusal to be manipulated. Now, with Earth's fleets poised for whatever came next, the Council knew that any action they took would have far-reaching consequences. Kor, the Vortax counselor, slammed his fist down on the table in frustration. "We are losing control. This is becoming a nightmare. We should have crushed them when we had the chance." Friction, though visibly stressed, remained calm. "We still have options, Kor, but they will not be easy. The humans want respect, and they have earned it. The Council must offer them a deal that acknowledges their strength. If we don't, we risk losing everything." But there was no denying that the damage had been done. The humans had walked away from the peace talks, and in doing so, they had changed the course of the war. The Council had failed to realize that the humans would not bend to their will. Now, the humans were in control. The Council could no longer hide behind its military might or its political influence. The humans had proven that they were a force to be reckoned with. The galaxy was beginning to look at the humans in a new light. They were no longer seen as a fractured species desperate for survival. They were now regarded as a rising power, a force that could not be ignored. The Council's response to this new reality would define the future of the galaxy. If they could offer the humans a fair deal, one that respected their power and their pride, they might avoid war. But if they failed, the consequences would be dire. And deep down, Friction knew that their next move would decide the fate of the entire galaxy. One wrong step, and the humans would take their place at the top of the food chain. The Council would either adapt to this new reality, or it would face the full wrath of a humanity that had shown they would never bow to anyone. A dangerous turn. The Galactic Council's internal struggle reached a boiling point. As days passed without an official response from the humans, the pressure mounted. While some members pushed for immediate military action, others, including Friction, tried desperately to steer the Council back toward diplomacy. The galaxy's eyes were on them, waiting to see whether the mighty Galactic Council would fold under the pressure or continue to hold their ground. Trixion stared out over the massive council chamber, the weight of his decisions pressing heavily on his shoulders. He knew that they were walking a fine line. One wrong move, and the humans would see the council as nothing more than a paper tiger, weak and unable to stand up to the power they had shown. But the council couldn't afford to back down now. If they did, they would lose more than just the respect of their enemies. They would lose their influence over the galaxy itself. "We must move quickly," Trixion said, his voice trained. "The humans have already proven they are capable of much more than we anticipated. If we don't act now, we risk the entire balance of power shifting irreparably." Core, the Vortex, was less patient. "What more is there to discuss, Trixion? We've already offered them peace, and they walked away. They want respect. Let them have it, at the end of our weapons." There was a long pause. It was clear the council was at a crossroads. The debate grew louder, with council members divided. The more diplomatic factions wanted to maintain peace, hoping to coax the humans back to the table, while the more aggressive members, led by Core, believed the time had come to fight back. Trixion raised a hand, silencing the room. "If we strike now, we risk everything. The humans will retaliate. They've shown us that they are not afraid to fight. And if they do, we won't be able to stop them. We don't know what they're capable of." His words hung in the air. It was true that the humans had the upper hand. They had taken control of Earth and its colonies, and now their fleet was poised, ready to strike if provoked. If the Council moved first, they risked plunging the galaxy into war, one they weren't sure they could win. But time was running out. Each passing day that the humans held their ground made the Council's position weaker. Their envoys had been humiliated. Their diplomatic efforts had failed. The galaxy's faith in the Council's power was slipping away. In the depths of space, the humans were already making preparations for what would come next. Commander Grant had spent weeks observing the Council's response, watching for signs of weakness, waiting for the right moment to strike. He had played the waiting game, knowing full well that his strength lay in patience, but now he could feel the shift in the air. It was time to act. Grant stood on the bridge of his flagship, his hands folded behind his back as he stared out into the vast emptiness of space. His mind was focused. There was no more room for negotiation. The Council had failed to meet him halfway. They had not earned the peace they sought. Now, if they wanted peace, they would have to come to him, on his terms. "Commander, the Council is preparing for a military response," reported Lieutenant Sarah, her voice steady despite the tension that hung in the air. Grant nodded, his gaze unflinching. "I knew they would. They can't help themselves. They think they can intimidate us, but they don't realize that they're too late." A tactical officer spoke up. "We've got their fleet movements. They're making preparations for something big, possibly a strike at Earth." Grant turned to face his officers. "If they want to play that game, we'll show them how it's done. We're not backing down. They will come to us for peace, or they'll face the consequences." The decision was made. The humans would no longer wait for the Council's approval. They would take the galaxy by force if necessary. It wasn't just about winning anymore. It was about making sure the Council understood the cost of underestimating humanity. Meanwhile, back in the Galactic Council chambers, tensions were at their peak. Despite the push from the more aggressive factions, Trixion knew that they couldn't afford to go to war with the humans, not unless they had no other choice. The stakes had never been higher. "Send the envoys one more time," Trixion ordered, his voice filled with resolve. "This time, we offer the humans a real deal, one that recognizes their power. We have no more time to waste. If they refuse again, we'll have no choice but to take action." The Council's new peace proposal was sent to Earth. It wasn't what the humans had expected. It was better. The terms were fairer, more respectful. But the question remained, would the humans accept it? Or would they push the Council into a corner where only war could be the answer? Commander Grant received the message with a cold smile. The humans had waited for this moment. The Council was finally offering a peace deal that acknowledged their strength. It was a step in the right direction, but Grant knew that it wasn't enough. The Council had shown their true colors. The humans were no longer interested in negotiation. They were interested in securing their place in the galaxy. And so, the galaxy stood on the brink of something new. The peace talks had failed. The Council's mistake had set events in motion that would forever change the balance of power. Whether the humans would accept the deal or refuse it outright was anyone's guess. But one thing was certain: the Galactic Council would never again underestimate humanity. The final realization. The decision had been made. The Galactic Council, in a final desperate attempt to salvage peace, had sent their best envoys once again to Earth, offering a treaty that recognized humanity's strength and independence. The terms had shifted dramatically from their initial offer: resources, mutual protection, and most importantly, respect. It was a concession, a humbling move that showed how much the Council had underestimated the humans. But the question was, would it be enough? On Earth, Commander Grant stood before his officers, staring at the incoming transmission from the Council. His eyes flicked from one screen to another, analyzing the documents and terms of the new peace proposal. The room was silent as Grant processed the information, his face unreadable. Lieutenant Sarah, always quick to notice his reactions, spoke first. "Sir, they've offered us much more than before. They're giving us a seat at the table. They've acknowledged our power, our independence." Grant didn't reply immediately. He leaned forward, his hands clasped tightly. His thoughts were heavy, torn between the cold logic of negotiation and the fire that had fueled his people's resistance. The Council had made a crucial mistake by thinking they could impose their will on humanity. But now, after everything that had happened, the offer was no longer just about resources or protection. It was about something far deeper: the Council's acknowledgement of human strength and dignity. "They've come to us, finally recognizing that we're equals," Grant muttered, his voice low. "But it's too little, too late." The officers around him exchanged looks. They had fought hard for this moment, for humanity to be seen as a force in the galaxy, one that would no longer be overlooked or underestimated. But the time for talks was over. The humans had already proven their point. They had the strength, the resolve, and the right to stand tall. "Prepare a response," Grant said, his voice unwavering. "We'll accept their proposal, but it comes with one condition." The officers leaned in. "What's the condition, sir?" Grant's gaze hardened. "They must acknowledge us as equals, not just in words, but in action. We don't need their protection or their resources anymore. If they want peace, they'll have to treat us as a true partner, not as a lesser power." In the Council chamber, Trixion and his advisors watched with bated breath as the humans' response came through. It was swift, concise, and to the point. The humans had agreed to the peace deal, but on their terms. It was a final, undeniable message to the Galactic Council. Humanity would no longer be anyone's subordinate. Trixion, exhausted from the endless negotiations, sat back in his seat. The relief was palpable. Peace had been secured. But as he read the terms of the humans' acceptance, he couldn't help but feel a deep, gnawing sense of regret. The Council had never expected the humans to rise to such heights. They had thought of them as a broken species, a race that could be easily manipulated. But now, the humans had shown that they were not only capable of surviving, they were capable of dominating. Trixion's mind raced. This was a mistake, he muttered under his breath. We could have had peace on our terms, but instead, we gave them everything. The final realization had hit the Council. They had not just offered peace, they had been forced to accept humanity's terms. The humans were no longer the underdogs, the weak species fighting for survival. They were now the dominant power in the galaxy. The Council had learned the hard way: never underestimate humanity. Their resilience, their strength, and their unyielding spirit had turned the tables in ways no one could have predicted. The Council had given humanity a seat at the table, but it was humanity that had ultimately reshaped the table. As Grant stood before his crew, his voice carried the weight of a victory hard-earned. We did it. We've shown them what it means to respect us, to acknowledge us as equals. We've fought for this moment. And now we stand as a true power in the galaxy. The room erupted in applause. Humanity had won, not just the peace they sought, but a place at the very heart of the galactic community. Their strength had been proven, and the Galactic Council now had no choice but to accept their position. The galaxy would never be the same again. The humans had walked away from peace talks, had refused to accept anything less than equality, and in doing so, had rewritten the rules of the galaxy. The Galactic Council would never forget the lesson they had learned, that humans would no longer be ignored, and that respect had to be earned, not demanded. In the end, peace had been achieved, but it was peace on humanity's terms. And as Commander Grant looked out over the horizon, he knew that this was just the beginning. The galaxy had learned to fear the human strength, but it had also learned to respect them.